This is the ultimate beginner's guide to modern calligraphy and bullet journaling. I feel like they go hand in hand, so I kind of wanted to combine the two. It'll be a little lengthy, but it's going to be everything that you need to get started to create a beautiful bullet journal. Welcome back, everyone. I post 2 videos every week. Make sure you subscribe so you get all my latest videos. All right, first we're going to start with modern calligraphy supplies. There are many more options, but I'm just going to go over these for today. This is an artist sloth. It's a dual brush pen. One side is a brush and the other side is a skinny marker. Next up is a Tombow dual brush pen. This is what I use all the time. They have tons of colors. It's my personal favorite. It's a brush pen on one side and a skinny marker on the other side. The artist sloth is a great one as well. This is a midliner brush pen. These have a little bit more control than the Tombow. This is a great option. It's a brush pen on one side and a skinny marker on the other side. I love these as well. This is a Tombow Frudinosky small nib brush pen, single-sided. It's only on one side. The nib is much smaller than the others. You get tons of control. These are beautiful. This is the same as the previous, but black. I feel like everyone has this pen. It's really easy to work with. It's my personal favorite. This is a Crayola dual brush pen. You have a brush on one side and a marker on the other side. These personally are harder to work with. The nib isn't as flexible, but they're okay for beginner supplies. I still pick them up. This is an Art and Fly, very popular on Amazon. You get a brush on one side, and instead of just a skinny marker on the other side, it's actually a small nibbed brush pen as well. So that is all right. It was my first brush pen. I don't use it anymore. This is a Bic marker. You don't have to use a brush pen for calligraphy. You could use a regular marker, a pen, even a pencil if you really wanted to. These are very popular. A Crayola Super Tip, very inexpensive. You could use this as a brush pen, even though it's technically not a brush pen. I highly recommend those, especially for beginners, and I still use them all the time. And you can even use water brush pens or a regular paintbrush, but I'm not going to really be going over this. You need a much thicker and textured paper to use these supplies, so I'm not really going to be going over this. I personally don't use them. If you walk into your local craft store and go to the calligraphy section, you're gonna find the pen on the left side. A brush pen is the one on the right side. You want to look for brush pens, not traditional calligraphy. We're creating modern calligraphy, not traditional calligraphy. Here's a swatch of all the markers I showed you earlier and the brush pens. As I said before, I love the Tombow single-sided small nib brush pen. It is my personal favorite, and I have a ton of the Tombow dual brush pens. They have a ton of colors. I highly recommend going to a local craft store. I like going to Michael's or Hobby Lobby and just picking out one brush pen from each brand. That way you can not break the bank and you're spending $1.50 on one brush pen, whereas you're spending $30 on 12 brush pens or whatever the price may be. And I always use a 40% off coupon at Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and then I bring my fiance or a friend and they have a 40% off, so you could get 2 brush pens that day. And that way you could dip your toes in each brand and figure out which brush pen is best for you, because what's best for me may not be best for you. All right, we're gonna go over some lettering basics. First up is the baseline, which is where the letter sits. We have an ascender, which extends above the mean line. We have a descender, which extends below the baseline. We have a mean line, which is this middle line right here. We have a downstroke, which is the thickest part of the letter. And we have an upstroke, which is the thinnest part of the letter, and some people call it a hairline. It's this thin stroke right here. Then we have a cross stroke, which is just the line that crosses through letters like T. These aren't super important to know, it's just something to know. You don't really have to remember these. Really, you just need to know a downstroke and an upstroke. These are the basic strokes. Say I want to draw the letter D. I'm going to take an oval and an ascender loop and create a D. You can create any letter in the alphabet with these basic strokes. These aren't the only strokes you can do, but this is great to start as a beginner. If I want to create an H, I'm going to take a compound stroke and an ascender loop, and I'm going to combine the two. So I'm going to do my ascender loop and my compound stroke, and I'm doing thin upstrokes and thick downstrokes. And you're going to hold your pen at a 45-degree angle, not straight up and down. I like to practice in a regular spiral college ruled notebook. I don't really like to use a regular composition notebook because it never stays open. I find that the spiral bound is much easier to work with. It's not really that important, but that's just a little tip from me. This is the book I used to get started when I was a beginner. I'm going to put the link in the description. You don't really need it, but I thought I would just show you how I got started. And I'm going to have the link to other products I've shown in the description box as well, so make sure you check that out. This book was really helpful to me, but like I said, there's tons of tutorials online. You don't really need a book, but it is nice to have if you want one. You want to practice these strokes. I'm doing thin upstrokes and thick downstrokes. This is really helpful as a beginner, just to do these drills, just to practice adjusting the pressure of your brush pen. And you could do this with Crayola Super Tips as well. Make sure to hold your brush pen at a 45-degree angle, not straight up and down. I am doing thin upstrokes and thick downs. I'm going up, down, and up. Now I'm going to have a real-time tutorial of how to use brush pens with the full alphabet. I show you how to do it with Crayola Super Tips. And I even show you how to do it with regular markers. You can really use anything to create calligraphy. This is faux calligraphy right here. So if you want the real time of all of these alphabets, check out my channel. I'm gonna have the links in the description box as well. A lot of the videos that you watch are sped up, so it is important to really take your time and practice, practice, practice. I'm going to show you how to connect your letters. You need to stop before you draw the next letter. Otherwise, it's not going to look right. And a lot of people make a miniature L for an E, so make sure to push to the right to create an actual E in the word hello. And I'm stopping here, and then I'm drawing my next letter. I stop, and then I go again, and just make sure to stop between each letter. And now I'm gonna go back down on the thick strokes to create faux calligraphy. You can do this with any marker, like I've already said. And this is how I started, was actually just doing faux calligraphy. I didn't have any brush pens. And I'm gonna show you how to make your letters bounce. This is hard at first, but my key is to make sure that once you go above the baseline, to bring it back down below the baseline. I used to have a really hard time with this, so do it in pencil first and then go over it with marker. And like I said, make sure you lift your pen before each letter, and you want to make some letters below the baseline, some at the baseline, some above the baseline. So I'm really making sure that all of the letters have different baselines. I'm going in and making thick down strokes. A little insight to my calligraphy journey. My first brush pen ever was the Art and Fly from Amazon, and I used it. I practiced for a day or two, and I actually gave up, and then I picked up my brush pen again like 2 months later, and then I started again, and then I all of a sudden really got the hang of it. So if you just keep practicing, you will definitely get this. Now I'm showing you how you can use a Crayola Super Tip. In the first red hello, I just adjusted my pressure, and the second hello, I'm actually holding the pen straight above the paper, so I'm not holding it at a 45, so you're not seeing the line variations. You could do it this way if you can't get the hang of the pressure, and then just create faux calligraphy by making lines on the downstrokes. This is the method that I started with. I didn't have any brush pens at first. You can create this look with a regular pen if you wanted to. And you can also do the same faux calligraphy method. Remember to always lift your pen in between each letter, and instead of making the line, you just make thicker downstrokes with your marker. So that might be simpler as opposed to just adjusting your pressure along the way. These are great beginner techniques. Hopefully they help you. And now I just wanted to show you how to letter with an actual brush pen. I'm using a Tombow small nib brush pen, and I'm making sure to lift up my pen between each letter. The lines aren't super thick because this is a small nibbed brush pen. It is meant for smaller letters. Now I'm showing you what it looks like when I don't lift my pen in between each letter and I'm not taking my time. The first one looked way better. Even the most advanced people still use pencil and a ruler. It is very important, like I said, to use a pencil and a ruler. And if you're using a marker with a ruler, make sure to point the tip away from the ruler instead of towards the ruler. Otherwise, you are going to make a mess all over your paper. These microns are very, very popular. I highly recommend them. I feel like every bullet journal junkie has a set of these micron fine liners. I'm going to show you a few lettering styles that I use all the time. These are super simple, so they don't take too much time. The first one is a sans serif font, which just means that it doesn't have any ticks on the letters, and the serif is the second alphabet that I'm showing you. I suggest writing these down, having your own little template that you can look off of. And the third one is just a lowercase alphabet, and the last one is a fun style. And you can even add lines to parts of these letters or dots. The possibilities are endless, and you can even add ticks to the end of these letters like I'm showing right now. I'm not going to put them on the entire alphabet. I'm just going to put them on a few of the letters within the alphabet to give you how it would look. I still use these fonts every day. They're just so easy to remember. I'm going to show you a little trick to hide some mistakes. I'm using an acrylic paint marker. You could use a white jelly roll or any white that you have, and I'm dabbing instead of rubbing back and forth because it was smearing at first. So it's not a perfect method to fix mistakes, but it definitely works. Let it dry and then you could write right over it. Here's another lettering technique. You're just really spacing out the letters, and in the second one you are kind of making a little wavy line in between each letter, and you could create the same effect with a brush pen. I'm using a Tombow small nibbed brush pen here. I'm just doing the same technique. It's very easy, it's very elegant. This is one of my favorite fonts as well. I feel like I've given you a ton of fonts to work with, so hopefully you've written these out, and I'll probably have these on my Instagram and Pinterest if you want a still image. Oh my gosh, we're finally going to talk about actual bullet journals now. This is my Archer and Olive. It is very, very popular in the bullet journal community. What makes a bullet journal are these little bullet points within the bullet journal. It makes it so easy to line everything up. This paper thickness is 160 GSM, which is a very thick paper, which is why I love this so much. You don't have anything shadowing through. This is my 2020 bullet journal. I have the tutorials for all of these on my channel, so make sure you subscribe and check that out. But don't be overwhelmed. You can have a very simple bullet journal. I am a maximist. I have everything that I could possibly think of. A great start would be to have a Hello 2020 page, maybe a quote page, maybe a calendar, and then just start your months I'm giving you a sneak peek into my January 2020. I haven't filmed it yet, obviously, but I'm gonna have a January page right here, followed by a quote page. I'm gonna have a calendar page, and I'm gonna have a mood tracker. If you don't want a mood tracker, you don't have to have a mood tracker. It's whatever you want it to be. I'm gonna have a brain dump here with some habit trackers at the bottom. This page is very personal to me. It's my manifestations page. I have room for gratitude, affirmations, the essential oils I'm using that month, the chakra I'm working on. This is a weekly spread, but I'm actually using it for the entire month. I'm going to rate my day instead of writing down what I did for the day, because I personally don't like writing down what I did for the day. I already have that kind of in my calendar, and that's what's great is I can just make everything the way I want it to be. And this is actually for the entire month. I have the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th, which are all on Mondays. Most people have 4 weeks, but I'm just doing one for the month. This is my rituals. I like to manifest with the moon. I have room for my journal entries for the new moon, full moon, and waning gibbous. I have a spirit page. I will fill that out later. It's really about yoga and my meditation and whatnot. Some people like to have a key flip out page, which is helpful. Do not be intimidated if you consider yourself non-creative. Everyone has a creative bone in their body, but I totally get it. If you don't want to put all this work into something, you could use a ton of stickers. This spread was all stickers. This entire spread is completely out of stickers. I didn't even draw the title. That's stickers. The only thing I wrote with my normal handwriting was my vision and life statement. So if you consider yourself non-creative, stickers are your friend. This whole palette was on sale from Hobby Lobby for $5. That is a great deal. I have seen some really famous Instagram accounts and their entire bullet journal is made of stickers and washi tape. These stencils I got like 20 or 25 for $5 to $10 from Amazon. Those are great to use if you consider yourself non-creative. I want to show you a quick way to doodle. Everything technically has a shape in it. I'm going to be using a white Jelly Roll gel pen, a Tombow gray brush pen, a Micron fine liner, and a pencil. So I'm going to show you really quickly. I'm making this little elephant almost entirely of circles. I hand drew the eyeballs, little hairs on his head, the ears, the eyes, and the nose, and then I'm creating these feet from the circles that I drew in from the stencil. Pretty much everything has a shape, and you can create doodles that originate from a shape. Of course, always use pencil, and that way you can prevent any mistakes. I'm going in with my Micron fine liner. I brightened up the eyes with the white Jelly Roll pen, and this is the same Tombow brush pen. I'm just giving it a second coat around the ears and giving it a little bit of a shadow on the edges of some parts of the elephant. This kind of upgrades your doodles a little bit, so there's a little trick right there. And look how cute this elephant was. This took me literally 2 minutes to draw. I used this awesome stencil. I want to show you, this is my actual handwriting that I use every day, and I just wanted to write this to inspire you a little bit. Make sure to practice. Practice, practice. I kind of messed up this too a little bit, so I'm going over it with my white Jelly Roll. That's a little secret, is to use a white marker over mistakes, and I still don't like how it came out. So I'm actually going to patch this up with some washi tape. I think that washi tape was a little bit too translucent, so now I'm gonna put a thicker washi tape. And by the way, some washi tape comes like this to where you have to peel off the back. I personally don't like these kinds. I like the kind where you can just peel it back and it's already sticky. And there is some patchwork. I think that actually looks better than the original. That was another favorite way I love to fix mistakes. Now for the thrifty people, you can use paint swatches from Home Depot. Those are free. I had this little stamp thing lying around, so you could use those if you happen to have one. These pens came with this really cool metallic paper. I'm gonna use that in my bullet journal. Just use things that you have. I came across these essential oil stickers, so I thought to come up with this spread, and I used free printables that I created. I have a ton of free printables on my channel, so check those out. You could print them at Staples for 25 cents a sheet if you don't have your own printer. Here's another ton of free printables I give you access to, and this is only the half of them. I'm not showing a ton of printables that I already have on my channel right here. I use leftover scrapbook paper. These Crayola Super Tips are very inexpensive. They're awesome. I use them all the time. And now I'm going to show you my doodle books. This doodle book is a little bigger than a normal composition book. This is another doodle book. Here's another doodle book. And of course my Archer and Olive. These are the ones I use on a daily basis. I find that having a color key page is so helpful. I keep a picture of this in my phone, so whenever I go to the art supply store, I can look at the colors on my phone. I'm obsessed with these Faber-Castell metallic gel highlighters. I don't really use these Papermate gel pens anymore. Here's a sample of the Micron fine liners. You can get really thin lines with those. Of course, the Super Tip Crayolas are awesome. I don't really use gel pens at all anymore, except for the Cold Shadow and Silver Shadow. These are from Jelly Roll. I'll have the links to everything that I own in the description box. The Prisma brush I don't recommend unless you have watercolor paper. Here is a sample of the Hard Tip Brush Color Small Nibbed Brush Pens, and I'm holding the black one in my hand. I'm obsessed with the Tombow Neutrals palette and the Tombow Muted palette, but you can pretty much get the Muted palette within the Super Tip Crayolas, whereas the Neutrals, you can't really get those with the Super Tip Crayolas. So I say splurge for the Neutrals palette if you can, since you don't get those with the Crayolas. Here's some more Tombow colors. These are just random ones. They're not part of a palette. I bought them one by one. They were not part of a palette. I'm obsessed with metallic paint markers. I love these Pilot paint markers. The Pen and Touch are great. Pen and Gear, I didn't really like these that much. These Cali Creatives I picked up at Hobby Lobby. And then you have your Artist Loft and Midliners, which are great as well. Whenever I learned something, I learned a bunch of this stuff from Lettering Daily, so I kind of made my own guide and it really drilled it in my head. Now I want to go over this color harmonies page. I learned this from Lettering Daily. Stick to 2 or 3 colors, and if you're using 3 colors, they need to be similar shades. So use 60% for one, 30% for another, and only 10% as an accent color. That'll really make your pages look great. You don't want to use too many colors at once. And here is just some of my doodle pages. I love to practice. I love to have my own guide. I know what I'm capable of with these pages, and sometimes I just like looking at my own inspiration. Here's another little doodle book. It's not really a bullet journal or anything. It's just a blank doodle book. I practice in here a lot. I have some real-time tutorials to some of those on my page as well. This one is a doodle book, not technically a bullet journal, but I still consider it a bullet journal. I don't post any of these online because this is just really personal. It's about my workouts. They're very quick spreads. I don't spend much time on them. This little workout book was from TJ Maxx. It was really inexpensive, and I recommend using a college ruled notebook spiral bound just to test out your colors and practice. Here's another creative outlet, not a doodle book really, it's just a recipe book. It's just something I thought I'd show you since I was showing you all my books. This was technically my very first bullet journal. I considered it a bullet journal, but it didn't have any bullets, it had lines. But as you can see, it had thin paper. You can really see the shadows, so I really suggest getting a journal with thick pages. 160 GSM is very thick. I would go at least 120 GSM. These are my favorite supplies. The Tombow Small Nibbed Brush Pen, this Ad Tech Crafters Tape. It's instant, it works amazing. It's way better than a glue stick. The Neutrals palette from Tombow Fudanowski right here. And the Faber-Castell Metallic
gel sticks. I use these all the time. You'll see them in a ton of my videos. This is how you use them with a napkin. Here's an example of where I used it on my bullet journal. A Pilot gold paint marker, a Micron size 3 and 8, and the Crayola Super Tips are also my favorite. And I always draw moons, so I have to have this circle stencil. And of course, my Archer and Olive 160 GSM page thickness. I don't get any shadow lines and almost nothing bleeds through this paper, and I use the B5.
Okay guys, this is it. I'm gonna show you my first bullet journal page. It's very embarrassing, so don't give me any mean comments. But hopefully this will inspire you. It is cringy, and I thought buying a bullet journal, I say bullet journal because the whole bullet journal wasn't made of actual bullet points, but I still considered it a bullet journal because the back had the bullet points in it and some pages without the planner. So I thought it'd be easier buying a bullet journal that had the calendar months and asked me questions and things throughout the month, but I found out that it wasn't really catered to me. It was too much for me. It had too many questions, and I just never kept up with it. So I was trying so hard to make this bullet journal into what I wanted it to be, and it took me longer to create the look that I wanted. So I suggest just getting a blank bullet journal so you can do what you want to do. It's not as hard as it seems. I have a ton of videos, and I'll put the links to my bullet journal playlist in the description box. There's a ton of help out there and inspiration. The most important part is to practice, and more importantly, to have fun. Don't be hard on yourself. We're all improving. We all have to start somewhere, and what you might think isn't your best work, someone else might look at your work and think, wow, that's amazing. I've had a lot of those moments where I put my work out there and I think it's really not good at all, and then I get comments on it and they're like, wow, this is amazing, and I'm like, wow, I shouldn't have been so hard on myself. So you got this.